Something magical happens every year in the US between the months of January and April. Americans look forward to it all year, and it's a really special time in households across the country. Of course, I'm talking about Girl Scout cookie season. The actual dates do vary across Girl Scout troops locally, but generally this is the best time of year for those of us who spend the other months dreaming of Thin Mints, peanut butter patties, Samoas, and more. But how did we get here? How did the Girl Scouts manage to convince an entire country that we desperately needed 18 boxes of every flavor of cookie they're selling? Why are some of the most popular cookies named differently in different parts of the country? Where are they made? And why did the Girl Scouts start selling calendars in World War II in addition to their delicious cookies? Let's find out. Firstly, let's define the Girl Scout cookie craze for anyone not from the US. Girl Scout cookies today are cookies sold by Girl Scouts to neighbors, friends, businesses, and basically whoever has a sweet tooth. The Scouts themselves do not make the cookies. They take the orders, and then the orders are put through. When they're ready, they then deliver the boxes to the customers. Many Girl Scouts go door to door, but they also have cookie sales outside stores and fast food places where they set up their stalls and give you the chance to buy the boxes there without needing to pre-order. You can also buy cookies online these days directly from the Girl Scouts if you don't know a Girl Scout in person. And as we'll get into in this video, people are manic about their Girl Scout cookies and their favorite flavors. Only the biggest Scrooges don't like Girl Scout cookie season. A study has actually been done to show that the biggest reason that people don't buy Girl Scout cookies was not because they didn't want them, but because they weren't approached by a Scout or didn't come across them selling them in that particular cookie season. Now let's start with Girl Scout cookie history. The Girl Scouts started in 1912, and only 5 years later in 1917, they're already trying to dream up creative ways to help fundraise for local charities and to help raise funds to go back to troop activities to help keep the girls involved in the Scouts. The first troop in the whole United States to sell Girl Scout cookies were the Mistletoe Troop in Oklahoma. They sold them at a local high school. Over the years, the idea caught on as a local fundraiser suggestion. You can find it in a 1922 copy of the Girl Scout magazine, The American Girl, with a simple sugar cookie recipe. It continues like this throughout the 1920s, with individual troops doing local fundraisers and baking their cookies at home. In 1933, however, the Philadelphia Girl Scouts have another bright idea. What if they made it commercial, selling homemade cookies at the windows of the Philadelphia Gas and Electric Company? In the later part of the 1930s, Girl Scouts of the USA's main branch decides to start licensing commercial bakers to produce the cookies instead of having them made at home. Thus, the modern-day Girl Scout cookie sales are born. You'll notice the timing, right before World War II. During war times, Girl Scout cookies became harder to make and sell due to shortages of sugar and butter and flour, and so they did as many people did during these times and pivoted to calendars. The first Girl Scout calendars came out in the 1940s, but luckily by the time the war was over, cookie sales increased from even where they were back before the war. According to the Girl Scout website, the cookies at the time were just 3 varieties. You had the sandwich, the shortbread, and the chocolate mint, which is now known as the Thin Mint, which we'll go over later in this video. More flavors start to become available in the 50s as the suburbs in post-war America start to expand, and Girl Scout cookies are now sold in tables in shopping malls. The Girl Scout cookie fever keeps expanding through the decades, increasing and increasing and increasing, and of course going through changes in the cookies offered, but ultimately retaining the same goal: to raise money for local Girl Scout troops and to teach girls about money, entrepreneurship, marketing, and more. The biggest change for the sales of Girl Scout cookies came in 2014, when, for the first time, Scouts could now sell cookies digitally through the internet. Back when I was a Girl Scout, this did not exist. All of the orders were taken on a printed out cookie order sheet that you would then physically carry around or have your parents take to work and leave by the coffee machine. But nowadays, Girl Scouts can take orders through digital cookie, letting them create pitch videos, track their sales, and earn cool badges as they sell more. Now, who makes Girl Scout cookies if it's not the Girl Scouts themselves? There are 2 bakeries in the US that make Girl Scout cookies: ABC Bakers and Little Brownies. This determines the name on the cookie, but otherwise the cookies are basically the same. Different Girl Scout councils will get their cookies from one of these two bakers. Over the years, however, there have been other bakeries involved, and at one point there were up to 14 licensed bakeries producing the cookies. But the Girl Scouts wanted to go more streamlined, and so it was reduced to 4 bakeries in the 1970s and down to a final 2 in the 1990s that have been able to produce Girl Scout cookies ever since. This basically ensures that the quality is maintained and changes can be more easily made without needing to speak to a bunch of different bakeries across the country. Now let's talk about Girl Scout cookie queens. For the first 50 years of Girl Scout cookie sales, the top selling Girl Scout in a town or council won something very special: the title of Cookie Queen, which came with a crown. You can find out who won this title in the local newspapers at the time. It was that important of a deal to the local community. Today, the girls still win prizes and patches, but there's one Girl Scout who is still considered the queen of cookies for selling over 100,000 boxes of Girl Scout cookies between 1978 and 1990. Her name is Elizabeth Brinton, and she was known for selling cookies to everyone from Richard Nixon to Sandra Day O'Connor. With a real estate agent mother and some serious sales skills of her own, try saying that 10 times fast, she used innovative techniques at the time, like selling cookies in the metro stations around Washington, D.C. She also just simply did not let up. She's quoted as saying, "I had to push and push and push. Sometimes they try and sneak past you and you look them in the eye and make them feel guilty." She was invited to the White House multiple times, and finally, after many letters, she was allowed a photo opportunity to sell cookies to Ronald Reagan, who was in office at the time. He bought one of each of the 7 types of cookie flavors, and over the years, she started to be booked to give speeches to grown adults at sales conferences. Now let's talk about the different names of cookies in different regions. Because of the 2 different bakeries, there are regional differences to the names of some of the cookies over the years. Some of the most popular is the Caramel Delight versus Samoas. It's practically the same cookie, but the Caramel Delights have a higher cookie to caramel ratio, and Samoas tend to have more coconut. Then there's the peanut butter patties versus the tagalongs. Peanut butter patties don't have quite as much peanut butter as the tagalongs, but they taste generally the same. And of course, the Thin Mint is called the Thin Mint around the country. It's the most popular and most ordered Girl Scout cookie of all time, and it debuted in 1939 when it was called Cookie Mints. They changed names so many times over the years: chocolate mint, cookie mints, thin mint with no plural, but finally they settled on Thin Mints, and America has been loving them ever since. These have another variation depending on which bakery your local Girl Scouts use. The cookies are crisp chocolate covered in a minty chocolate coating, but if you get one from ABC Bakers, they're a little bit flatter and crunchier with more mint. And if you get them from Little Brownie Bakers, you're gonna have a less crispy cookie with a little bit more peppermint oil in it. The debate rages over whether you should eat your Thin Mints straight out of the freezer, which is one of the famous Girl Scout cookie hacks that people use to enjoy their Girl Scout cookies. I'm not sure mine have ever lasted long enough to make it into a freezer, but it's a nice thought I'll have to try someday. That brings us to the end of this video. Let me know your favorite Girl Scout cookie in the comments below if you're American. And if you're not, let me know, have you ever heard of Girl Scout cookies, or do you have similar fundraisers in your country?